Hey everybody, we're going to start by connecting the 12AY7, and I want to show you some tricks around that. So let's take a look at what I've done. So you'll see that the 12AY7 is now connected. The green wires are my filament. This is pin 9, and over here is pin 4 and 5. It's probably hard to see. And this is pin 1, 2, 3, 7, and 6 is right behind it. And there's a jumper going from 8 to 3. And if you look at the diagram, there's the jumper going from 8 to 3. And one thing you want to do with these things, first of all, if the wires have to cross, you want to cross them at 90-degree angles. So for example, this wire here is crossing here at a 90-degree angle. You don't want to have wires laying on top of filaments. So I've got the filament wire low to the chassis, and I've got this one bent up to go over it. Same thing with these. I've got these bent up at the moment, and what I'll do is as I start to power the amp up and start to hear noise and hum, I'll be able to adjust these wires because they are solid, and I'll be able to adjust them to get them to the optimal place. I may be able to lay these down flat, I don't know yet, but I'm going to leave them up in the air for the moment, and if I get a nice quiet amp by the time I'm done, then I'll dress the wires differently, but at least I'm setting it up now so that when I power it on for the first time, I know that I've got it relatively to spec. So the first tube is done, and obviously the next step is going to be this 12AX7. I'm a little confused today. And again, the filaments on these things are a little bit different. No, it's actually the same. So you've got pin 9 and pin 4 and 5. So that's the filament on these things. And on this one, there's actually a jumper that goes between pin 7 and 1, and there's a resistor that goes between 1 and 6, and it's a 100K resistor. So I'm going to connect this 12AX7 now, and again, take my time, make sure the wires are the right length, and make any adjustments I need to make, and I'll get that done, and then I'll come back and show you. But I wanted to show you a little bit about lead dress because it is important, right? You don't want your filaments getting anywhere near your signals, especially with these preamp tubes. They're really high gain, so you want to try to be careful there. All right, let me go back to it. Okay, same thing here on the 12AX7. That's this one right here with the 100K resistor and the jumper between 1 and 7. We've now got that connected, and again, I've got my wires bent up, at least out of the way for the moment. And I'll do final dress lead on those later. But that's all connected at this point. Alright, onward. And finally, our last 12AX7 is wired. And that's this one right here. Now, previous video you saw that I had a bunch more wires here. I had a black, a blue, and a red coming out of here. These two go to the speaker jacks, which are right here. The power connections for the output transformer, they'll need to come out over here somewhere because they connect right here. So let me flip this up and I'll show you what I'm going to do. So here's the wires. I'm simply just going to run them down through this grommet. This is the choke, and I'll run them down there and they'll be in the right place. So let me go do that. I'll be back. Okay, you'll see I have the wires run down here. And let's flip it over, and you'll see that these 3 wires now come out right here on the end of the board, exactly where I want them. And if you look at the schematic, with a layout I should say, you'll see that the wires from the output transformer come right out here and attach to the board right here, these spots. So to equate that into a place where you could see, it's these lugs right here, 1, 2, and 3 underneath here. So we're in good shape. All right, I'm going to continue with these two 5881 tubes now and get them connected, and then that'll complete this side with the tubes. And then tomorrow we're going to focus on the volume pots and get that going. I'm going to wait for the speakers as well. I'm not going to connect that yet. I want to do a little research into how I'm going to ground all this stuff. But we're making good progress. Again, lead dress is important. I've got all the wires up in the air, so I'm not worried about initial noise. But I will have to tweak these things as I adjust the amp after I get it running. That's where we are. This is Ron. I'll be back. Alright, just to recap the work for today, the 3 tubes here, the 12AX7s and the 12AY7 are all connected. The two 5881s output tubes are all connected, You'll see there's a 470 ohm 1 watt resistor on each one. And I've connected the choke. So the choke is connected right there. That's the black wires. And then that red wire right there, this blue wire, and the brown wire are the output transformers. And is the output transformer. They connect to the 5881s. I've got the high power lead connected to the diode. So essentially the circuit board is now connected to the transformer. And that's about it. So this entire side of the board, or the chassis, is done. And then next we need to tackle all these connections here. Alright, I've also connected the standby switch, which goes to that yellow wire right there. Alright, so that's where we are. Tomorrow's another day. Alright, so I've begun the wiring of the pots. So I've got the first volume normal pot wired, and the bright, and you'll notice I have that 100 picofarad cap here. One thing I want to show you is these three wires here, the red, black, and white. These come from the filter caps, and I want to try to keep them away from these volume controls just in case there's any hum. So what I've done is I've tucked them underneath this board, and I've put a drop of hot glue here and here on those bolts, and that should hold them out of the way. And they attach right here on these three lugs, so that should be easy. I'll be back. Before I continue wiring these pots, this is my treble, this is my bass, this is my middle, and my presence. You'll see I've marked them with just a little marker. Because when you're working on a diagram upside down like that, I want to make sure I've got the wires going to the right places. So just a little trick. Let me continue the wiring, and we'll come back. Alright, so I've got some decisions to make here. I haven't connected the input jacks yet, so that's putting that aside. I have a bunch of grounds here, so I've marked them all with a red marker. There's one here, there's one here, there's one here, there's one here, and the other side of this cap has to go to ground as well, right? If you look here at the presence knob, it's got a 0.1 600 volt cap connected to the middle peg, middle terminal strip there, and then it goes to ground. And then each of these, or some of these pots, go to ground as well. So the third pin here on the volume normal goes to ground. The third pin of the volume bright goes to ground. The third pin of the middle goes to ground. And the third pin of the presence knob goes to ground. So I have a lot of ground points here. And I really don't want to start drilling holes in this chassis, because then it's really not, I don't know, to me at least it's not unique. So I think what I'm going to do is build a ground rail using some solid copper wire, electrical grade wire, and possibly run it. Maybe I'll put a terminal strip in here and bend the wire like this and have it come out across here, and I can attach all of these things to ground. But I'm going to give it a little more thought, because I really don't want to screw this up. So I may do a little research and figure out what exactly I need to do for a ground bus. So I'm going to do that and see what my next step is. I'm not going to rush this, because one mistake and then this thing is going to be a problem. So I'm going to do a little research, see how other people have built these amps, because I've seen a lot of people on YouTube that built the same amp or a similar one, and I want to see what they've done. For example, I saw one guy who built one of these, and instead of putting the filter caps on the top here, he actually mounted them directly to these pots, and I was like, wow, that's going to be a pain in the ass to change later. So I want to take my time and do it right, and I'll go research that. I think at this point I'm going to end the video here, and because that will allow me to pick up the next one with the input jacks being connected, the speaker outputs being connected, and we possibly may be able to turn it up and do a variac test on it. So so let me end this one here. I'll put this one up, and I probably won't put the next one up till later in the week, until I do a little more research. But that's where we are. So we've got all these pots connected. Life is good. And again, the wires are loosely dressed, and we'll get to that final part later. That's where we are. Oh, by the way, these white wires you see here, if you look at the treble and the bass, you'll see that there's a jumper wire that goes between these two. and there's one that goes between the base and the middle. And all I did was I used some 20 gauge hookup wire with a piece of sleeve insulation and just connected the two together. Alright, that's all I'm going to do for now. Now it's research time before we jump into the next step. This is Ron. Have a great Sunday, everybody.